Welcome back. I just got home from a family vacation. I was on the road for 20 days. We went to Ohio, then we popped over to Michigan for a family camp, which is a summer camp with all my kids and my wife. Pretty cool experience. That was a week long. Then we popped back over to Ohio for another 9 or 10 days. So all in all, 20 days on the road. And as I'm coming home, I don't know if this happens to you, but it happens to me where I feel anxious. I start to feel anxious on the back end of the vacation a little bit, and getting back, I'm like, man, I didn't get enough done. The summer is slipping away. It's already August, like 2025 is, 3 or 4 months away from being done, and I'm behind. And this anxiety is coupled with a process that I'm in, and I'm going to get into that in a second as to what is also kind of fueling this. But I want to talk about how anxiety is good, can be good, what it's telling you, and how you can make decisions based around that anxiety and use that to fuel growth, to fuel progress. So let's get into the show today. I'm going to talk about my very first deal, because as I've gone and done many, many deals since then, some of these feelings that I was feeling have faded away. But where you're at now, you may be faced with some of this stuff. So I'm going back, and I was on a podcast last week, and they were asking me about my first deal, and I walked through the story of buying my first 12-unit apartment deal. And I talked about the stages that I went through. So stage number one, before you decide to change something or do a deal or make a big action, is you have pain, right? You have the pain of staying where I am now is greater than doing something different. So I've got to change something. If the pain isn't great enough, like we're comfortable where we're at, then, we're not going to change. So for me, the pain was I'm making a living, $150,000 a year as a contractor, but I'm working 50, 60 hours a week. I'm comfortable. I can pay my bills. But I was able to look into the future and see, well, what about when my kids need to go to college? What about when my daughters get married and I got to pay for their weddings? What about when I'm 75 years old and I'm too broken down to remodel bathrooms and kitchens and build houses anymore, and I just don't want to deal with it? What about then? What's that going to feel like? And I was able to bring that pain of being not prepared and not ready, and I was able to bring it into today and say, you know what? That pain is too great. I don't want to bear that cost in my future, and I'm going to have to change something about it now. And that pain created a catalyst of, I'm going to look for a new opportunity. I'm going to try and do something different. And so that is step one. And what I did was I started looking around, and I stumbled upon apartments. I'd already owned some rentals, and this looked like the next step. And I found a course online. I very hesitantly bought this course. I thought I was getting scammed. It was a big purchase for me at the time. It was like $1,100, $1,200. But I bought this course, and I got very, very, very excited about this because I saw, okay, here's a path. Here's something that could work. Here's something that could help me achieve what I want to achieve. I'm going to be able to avoid this pain, solve this problem. And I got really, really excited. And if you're anything like me, you get shiny object syndrome, and you felt this way before. You have seen an opportunity, and you're like, man, that could work. I could make money doing that. Whether it's buying real estate, buying a plumbing company, doing a roll-up, investing in cryptocurrencies, whatever it is, there's a million different ways out there to make money. But you get really, really excited on the first stage about how you're going to do this. And everything is rosy, and it's like, wow, this is going to be great. And it builds hope. And you need to have that, right? Because without that excitement and the availability to avoid pain, you're not going to do anything. But that excitement fades, doesn't it? Because as you look into stuff, reality sets in. And that's what happened for me with buying apartments. I go through the course, I see on paper and in the spreadsheets how all this stuff can work. I see how you can find a deal, how you can buy it, how you can raise money, get the loan, how you can operate it, how you can cash flow it, how you can sell it or refinance it for massive profits. It's all exciting and it's all theory. But then reality sets in, where I start looking on LoopNet, and I start looking on Crexy, and I start talking to brokers, and I try to talk to investors, and people start telling me no, and I can't find a good deal. And it gets harder and harder and harder, And the reality sets in of, wow, this is not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it, and nothing is going to be handed to me. And this is a critical juncture because the reality, no matter what you do, no matter what business you start, or whether you're trying to get in shape and get fit, go to the gym, whatever it is, reality is going to set in of this is going to be hard. This is going to take effort. And at that junction, you have two options. One, you can go forward, or two, you can give up. Now, before I talk about going forward, I want to talk about giving up. Because sometimes giving up is the right move. You're not going to hear that on many podcasts, but sometimes giving up is the right move, right? Where you see, hey, they showed me all of the shiny and the good, and they hid some of these bad negatives, and now that I've uncovered them, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, and this isn't what I want to do. Or I'm not willing to do that, or I don't have the skill set to do that. I don't have the heart to do that. I don't have the passion to do that. This is not something that I want to pursue for whatever reason it is, and I'm going to give up on that. And I'm going to lay that down so that I can find the thing that is going to work, and I'm going to keep looking, right? And that's okay. But most of the time, people give up just because they're like, well, I thought this was going to be super easy. I thought this was going to be a walk in the park. I thought I was just going to get lucky and millions of dollars are going to get dropped in my lap. I mean, they're not going to say that, but they really wanted it without doing the work. And now that they see that there's work involved, they want to give up. That's not what you want to do, right? And so if you go forward into that, there's going to be pain. There's going to be anxiety because you're walking into uncharted waters. You're doing something that you've never done before. And this is where I'm talking about that anxiety can be good feedback. It can be like showing you, hey, you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're doing something you haven't done before. You're also doing something hard. And it's kind of good that it's hard because if it's hard, that means there's opportunity there. That means 95, 98% of people are going to quit and going to give up and never going to do this, never going to achieve anything. And if you do, and if you stay the course, there are rewards to be reaped. And so this is what happened with me. For about 2 years, I just tried to make offers on deals, find deals, talk to investors, and nothing worked, but I kind of kept going back to it because I'm like, look, this is a path. This works. This is safe. This is fairly low risk. Like, this is what I want to do. This is what I have skills in. I have construction experience. Like, let me keep on pushing and pushing and pushing until I finally did come across this 12 unit where the numbers penciled out. The owner was willing to carry 70% as seller financing. I was able to find an investor that would give me $90,000 for my down payment. I was able to close it. I was able to implement my plan. I was able to sell it, and I made about $160,000, $60,000 for my investor and $100,000 for me, and it was a great deal. And it was really, really fulfilling to see something come full cycle and to make that happen. And then the next time I did it, there wasn't so much of that reality setting in. I understood the reality. I knew what it was going to take to close the next deal. And in fact, it became easier because now I had a track record. Now I had reputation. And so I was able to close deal after deal. And eventually that anxiety and that fear and that reality of pain, it kind of faded away to where now when I put a deal under contract, it's sort of like business as usual. I don't want to be cavalier about it because it's always hard to close a deal, but it's not nearly as hard as it used to be. And the emotions aren't there like they used to be. But I want to talk about, I'm going through this same set of steps in real time right now. And I want to talk about that. And this is something that I'm a little hesitant to talk about on the podcast because this may very well be something that I give up on. Maybe something that I say, you know what, I don't want to take on that risk. I don't want to take on that effort. It's just not worth it to me right now. I'm not going to do it. But I'm not leaning towards that right now. So I want to talk about it. So I'm going to talk about the stages, right? So right now, something that I want to do is I want to be able to make a large pop of money in a short period of time. A short meaning like, 2 to 3 years. I want to do that through development because I want to buy stuff close to my hometown. I want to buy more stuff in South Carolina. I live down by Charleston. And so I met a guy who is building these flex warehouse spaces on small parcels, like 4 to 5 acres. And he's building these 6 of them at a time, 10 of them at a time, and he's putting 20 or 30 on this parcel of land. He's condoing them and he's selling them off individually to small business owners. So like, think about your local HVAC guy who needs an office space, or maybe he's renting like a warehouse from somebody. He's paying $2,000 or $3,000 a month. And if he could buy his own unit, 1,000, 2,000 square foot unit, he would rather do that than just rent forever, okay? And so these flex warehouses are in demand in this size because everybody else is building, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 square foot, and it doesn't fit the size and scale that contractor is at right now. There's other people that, they want to store their RVs or boats or exotic car collections, whatever. I mean, you can put stuff in there other than a business, but by and large, these are being used by electricians, plumbers, landscapers, pest control companies, HVACs, and there's hundreds or thousands of these small businesses all across the country. So flex warehouse is something that's pretty hot right now. And I'm looking into this and I meet this guy and he's taking down these parcels of land and he's building these. He's building them in Ohio and it's costing him about $57,000 per unit, all in, including land. And he's able to sell them for about $120,000 a unit. Now my ears perk up there because that's a 50% or 100% return on your money. If you put in 57 and he's getting 120, that's a pretty good return. Especially when you think about multifamily where, we're trying best case scenario to push values of properties by 20, 30% in a couple of years. And so he's able to, invest $5 million and make $5 million. Now, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. Like that's really cool. I wonder if I could find land around me that would work, and I'm doing quick math and I'm looking at this and I see like, yes, there is opportunity there. I could buy a 4 or 5 acre parcel for $400,000 or $500,000 and I could build this thing out, be into it for maybe 3.5 million and sell it for 6 to 7 million. Like that's a good deal. But then reality starts to set in, right? After I got excited about this and I'm like, oh man, I could make $3 or $4 million in a year or two. Let's do it. Let's go for it. But reality sets in because remember, this is something that I'm not super familiar with, AKA development. I've gotten a little more into it. We're working on a 63 acre parcel, going through zoning and changing the use of that to build an industrial park. We're just going to sell the land. We're not actually going to build an industrial park, but we're working on that with an investor who owns the land free and clear. And so I'm working on that project. And I'm thinking, this might be something that I could do. I'm moving in this direction. But as I get into it, it's like, okay, you're talking commercial, Jennings. You don't have experience in this. You've pulled permits for single family residential. That's way easier. You've never developed a residential neighborhood. And with commercial, it's like, you've got civil engineering. You've got stormwater and drainage. You may have to go through rezoning. Like maybe the zoning for the land isn't going to allow for what you want to build. You've got to get construction into perm loans and finance that. You've got to build out these buildings. What if they don't sell? What if you put them up for sale and people don't buy them? And then you're really, really stuck and you've got this huge loan that you're carrying. And the risk on this could be, in fact, a lot greater. And just the reality of the hoops you have to go through to just be able to put a shovel in the ground. If you know anything about development, you know what I'm talking about. It's a huge undertaking, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months or more before you can even start to break ground and build your project. And if it doesn't work out, like the county turns you down or the zoning isn't right, or you come back and the bids for the civil and the site is too expensive and the whole deal falls apart and you've wasted a lot of money and wasted a lot of time doing this. And so this reality has set in with me and I'm at this juncture, right? Where do I give up or do I go forward? And I want to make a critical point right here because if you're by yourself, you're probably, I don't know the specific math on this, but I would say you're probably 10x more likely to give up at that point, right? This is where a tribe is so critical. This is where borrowed belief comes in. And when I say borrowed belief in a tribe, imagine if you found an apartment complex deal and you could hold hands with somebody that had already done it, you could hold hands with somebody that had already operated apartments, they've gotten the loans, they've raised the money, they know what a good deal looks like, they know what the pitfalls are, they know how to identify opportunity and how to discard stuff that isn't going to work, and they're going to walk you through this deal. How much more confident are you going to be? How much more of a success rate do you think you're going to have of even just putting something under contract, the confidence that you need to do that, right? I was able to do that through partnering with Yaden, who didn't necessarily have a whole lot more experience than I did, but he was pulling in the same direction as I was. And when I faltered, he pulled. When he faltered, I pulled. We also partnered with some guys that were very well connected in banking and lending. Like they could qualify for loans. They could raise money. They could raise half the money. So, hey, maybe I can raise half the money. If these guys can bring half the money, maybe I can do my part. And that borrowed belief helped me close my first 6 or 7 large deals. We worked with these guys, and they gave me a lot of confidence to press forward. And so I'm a real big proponent of a partnership in that instance. If you have a partner that really is bringing something to the table that you don't have, and they're going to help you pull in the direction that you want to go in, versus it's all on you, you get discouraged, and you give up when the reality sets in, and this is going to be a little harder than you thought it was going to be. And so in my instance, I'm looking at this guy in Ohio who, maybe could partner with me, maybe in a small way, like, hey, I'll give you some equity in the deal to be my consultant and help me through. Maybe in a larger way of, hey, you help me with getting the loan, you help me with raising the money, and we're going to be 50-50 partners on this deal. I don't know exactly what's going to evolve or even if this is going to evolve, but that's sort of how I'm thinking about it, because this is a guy that I'm already bouncing questions off of. And so I decided to keep on going forward. And I think the next best step for me is to actually put a tract of land under contract. So if I put a tract of land under contract, I'm going to have to put down, 1 to 2% of the purchase price. So we're talking $500,000 piece of land, $5 to 10 grand. I got to put down in earnest money, which is refundable, right? So I can get that back if I terminate. But if I put that deal under contract, now I've kind of like thrown my hat over the fence. If you want to cross the fence, throw your hat over the fence. Now you got to get over the fence to get your hat. And so if I put something under contract, it's like, okay, I've got a specific deadline. I've got 30, 45 days, 90 days, 6 months, whatever the due diligence period is, to figure out all of these questions that I have. Now I'm motivated. All right, let me go meet with the county. Let me go see what they think about the zoning. Let me go talk with the civil engineer. What's it going to cost? What's this going to cost? What's that going to cost? What's the parking lot going to cost? How much are the materials going to be? Oh, you know what? Let me get a materialist. Can we fit 28 units onto this land, or can we only fit 10? All right, we can only fit 10. You know what? This deal died. Doesn't make sense, but I got 10 steps closer than I was before. Whereas if I just get overwhelmed and I don't even take the next step, then I never really make progress. And I never find that opportunity that's going to work. So in the deal room, we talk about that, like make an offer, make the offer. 9 times out of 10, the offer that you make isn't going to work for the seller anyways. And then if it does, bam, you have something that it's worth it to put your time, focus, and attention on. You can start going through the due diligence process, and we help you with all that. We have checklists of what to do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, loan sponsorships, capital raising, all that stuff. But if you try to have every duck in a row before you take any action, nothing is ever going to happen. So I narrowed this down to 2 parcels of land that I'm looking at. One's about 2 acres, one's about 5 acres, and I've sent these to a local engineering firm that is very familiar with taking stuff through the permitting process, right? I'm getting somebody on my team that's been there, that has borrowed belief. He knows this can work. He's done it before many times. And so I've sent him these 2 parcels of land. I said, hey, what do you think it would cost to get to the land disturbance permit, right? Which is the first stage of development, getting the ability to clear the lot. And he said, well, you would need this, and this, like concept plan, civil engineering, stormwater plan, geotechnical, you need a survey, and you need a permitting consultant to help you push this thing through. And it would cost about $25,000 to $35,000 all in to do that. All right, okay, great. that's a good starting point of now what I know. Second thing I did was, so I sent him this stuff. I said, which parcel do you think is best? When he comes back to me and he says, hey, I think on this 2-acre parcel, we can fit X amount of units. The zoning is good. I think we can do it here. Then I'm going to engage him for a concept plan, and I'm going to put it under contract. So at that point, I can put it under contract. That's not really going to cost me anything other than cash tied up, but I get it back if I don't close it. And then I'll have to pay him $3,500 to get a concept plan. So that's a real cost I'm going to lose if the deal doesn't go through, but I'm willing to risk that. With the concept plan, I can show the lot, the plot plan, I can show the retention ponds, I can show the outline of my building, and now I can take that to the county and they can say, yes, this looks good, you should go to the next step. Then I'm going to go through civil engineering, then I'm going to go through the geotechnical, and I'm going to spend that $25,000, $35,000 to get me to where I've got land disturbance permit. At that point, now I can close the loan. It's a much more bankable deal. The banks are going to like it. They're going to look at, okay, he's already got permission from the county. Everything's good to go. He's got his construction budget in order, on and on and on. And the whole time I'm in the due diligence process, I'm putting together my bids. How much is the material? How much is the concrete? How much is the paving? All that stuff so that I can know for when I actually have to pull the trigger on buying this land that this is a viable project where I can sell it for $7 million and I can be all in for $3.5 million and we can make money with this deal. But I'm going through that same anxiety that I did with closing my first apartment deal on this deal because I'm going into uncharted territory. And my brain, my emotions are kind of screaming at me. They're like, don't do this. This is so risky. Like, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if this happens? And it's projecting out a $3.5 million loss. That's what my brain is doing. It's projecting out a $3.5 million loss. Stop. Think about this with me for a second. Anxiety comes from not a logical thought process. It comes from an ambient, all these thoughts that are floating around in your head, and your brain is projecting worst case scenario in all these ways. When I quantify it down, my worst case scenario for step one is that I lose $35,000. That I put it under contract, I pay for all this preliminary work, and the deal doesn't work out. Could I lose $35,000? Yes. Do I want to lose $35,000? No. But if I do, is that going to sink me? Absolutely not. I'll be okay. I can make it through. I might even be able to share some of those costs with my partner. So now it cuts it down to $18,000 possible loss. That's doable. I can do that. Then I think about when I'm through there, right? If I'm 6 months into this project and I'm almost at my land disturbance permit and I'm ready to close, you know what? I'm going to have already marketed this thing. I haven't marketed my concept plan. I've drawn renderings. I've put out my ads. I've talked to realtors. And I've already got 5, 10 of these pre-sold. I've got buyers that want them and they've put down a deposit. That gives me a lot of confidence because if I sell 10 or 12 of these, I can essentially recoup my costs of building and I make my profit on the next 12 or 14 of them. And so if I don't have any pre-sold and the market's just crickets and nobody wants to buy these and nobody's responding to my ads and the demand is just not there, I terminate and I lose my $35,000. Right? And so there is a way to overcome all of these little thoughts that are rumbling around and screaming in my head. You're going to lose money. You're going to make a bad investment. You're going to make a bad deal. There's ways to overcome those. And if I quantify them, write them down, and then figure out a plan to do that, I'm going to be okay. Because those thoughts, they really are protecting me. If I went into this blind, like just put it under contract, close in 30 days, and then I find out that I can't do what I want to do, or I can only put 5 units on there and it's not going to make any sense to do it. Well, yeah, I just lost $500,000 on this land and $35,000 on entitlements and now I can maybe sell the land for $250,000 and I just lost a bunch of money, right? Because I didn't pay attention to my anxiety. I didn't pay attention to those things. If something is bothering me, how do I vet out and get a solution around what that is? Because if I can do that, then I can take just the next step. And if I figure that out, then I can take just the next step. And so if you're out there listening and you're wanting to do apartments, you're wanting to buy commercial real estate, you're wanting to do bigger deals besides, just flipping a house or buying a single family rental, break it down into what is the first step The first step for you might be, well, I need to be able to underwrite a deal and know where their value is. I'm going to look online and see what's out there, and I need an analyzer on how to do that. I need to know how to do that. I have an 8-video course with my full-on analyzer that I use. I'll give it to you. Just DM me, message me on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I'll send it right over to you. And you can start the first step of your journey. Because if you find an opportunity and you get excited, then you're gonna be like, all right, well, what's my next step? My next step, I probably need to build some relationships with people that can give me money. I need people that can help me sponsor this loan. I want to check this by with some experts like Jennings and Yaden and Tim. Do I really have a deal on my hands? And then if that passes that gate, you go to the next step, and before you know it, you've got a deal closed. It doesn't happen in one giant leap. It happens with the people that are like, what is the next right thing to do? What can I do to mitigate risk? And what can I do to make a little bit of progress with risking as little money as I can? So this is what I'm going through. This is a little bit of a real raw episode, but I wanted to just tell you guys something that I'm struggling with, having some anxiety around. I feel like I'm back at square one with buying my first apartment. All right, guys, so have a great week. Chat soon. Send me a message if I can help you, and I'll send you the analyzer. All right, guys, peace.